Welcome to Creation Magazine Live. What we're going to do on this program is look at articles in Creation Magazine and do a video version of them. For those of you who have been subscribers for many years, you know the kind of information that you get in Creation Magazine. It's faith-building information.
Right.
All kinds of questions are answered that Christians and non-Christians have in the magazine. Mm-hmm. And our scientists and speaking staff, and actually many contributors from around the world, contribute to this magazine. So what are we doing today?
Well, we've got, this is the June issue from 2008, volume 30, number 3. And the particular article we're looking at is called Excellent Eye. So it's talking about just the design in the human eye.
Amazing design.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is from Dr. David Catchpool and Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, and they did this article together, I guess. So let's just go through a little bit of it here. Starts off, says, when you emerge from a darkened room out in bright sunlight, your eye mechanically shrinks the pupil, cutting down the amount of light entering the eye. In fact, the eye works marvelously in a wide variety of light intensities, from hardly any light to very bright light. The eye can detect a single photon of light, the faintest light possible. Despite some evolutionists claiming that the eye is badly designed, this is a common, something Richard Dawkins brings up many times when he's critiquing creation. He says it's impossible to improve on the sensitivity. That you can't actually make it better in this one respect. But the eye can also work with 10 billion photons. That is, its dynamic range is 10 billion to 1. Modern photographic film has a dynamic range of only about 1,000 to 1. Now you'd know about that because you're into photography and that kind of stuff. So
film was of course a little old, but the sensors on digital cameras are roughly the same, or even worse than film. So.
Right. Also, one of us, and he's referring to Dr. Sarfati, performed a doctoral research using state-of-the-art light detectors. However, they were so delicate that they needed protection from more normal light intensities using filters that only let in a millionth of the light. Otherwise, the detector would have been destroyed. Newer models have an automatic shutoff. Yet the eye easily adjusts to a far wider range without needing such a shutoff. So it's got automatic machinery. The best known ways the eye copes with varying light intensity is the iris. This is the colored ring of the eye. In bright light, muscles contract and narrow the pupil, letting less light in. In dim light, other muscles widen the pupil. But the biochemists Craig Montel and Seng-J Lee have discovered that microscopic machinery is involved, not just the large-scale motion of the iris. They examined fruit fly eyes, which have similar proteins and light detector cells to ours. These cells have the light-detecting proteins in one end of the cell. But another protein called arrestin is moved around in the cell in response to the light. In dim light, arrestin is in a holding area, but in bright light it's shuttled so that it can bind and calm the light-detecting protein, thus protecting it. The arrestin doesn't just drift into place, rather it's moved quickly by a motor protein, myosin, along train tracks, essentially train tracks, of the cell's internal skeleton.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this isn't just floating around. It's like when it's needed, it moves into position.
Yeah. It doesn't make that sound though, does it?
Well, I don't
Probably
know. Maybe
not.
it does if you listen really hard. The myosin and arrestin are glued together with a special sticky fats. Dr. Montel explains, for the cell to properly adapt to bright light, arrestin needs to move. If it doesn't, the cell remains as sensitive to light as it was in the dark. So, is this chance or design? Far from being a poor design, the eye's dynamic range exceeds that of the best man-made photodetectors. And the latest research shows that the intricate microscopic machinery behind it, a motor, glue, calmer, and internal train tracks, all these features would need to be present and coordinated, otherwise the eye would be blinded by bright light. Thus, natural selection could not build this system up step by step, since each step by itself has no advantage over the previous step until all steps are complete. The Bible has a far more cogent explanation. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. That's, of course, Psalm 139:14.
Yes.
An explanation so obvious that men are without excuse. And, of course, we understand that from reading Romans 1:20. The fact is, Romans 1:20 states that because of what God created, no one on Judgment Day will be able to claim that, well, there was no evidence for a God.
Yes, gee, I didn't know.
Right,
yeah.
Because of what he created and just how amazing it is. And that leads to an interesting concept, by the way. For those Christians that are claiming that maybe God used evolution to create, what we call theistic evolutionists.
Right, yeah.
If you look at Romans 1:20 and you read that verse, it says, the evidence of God, it's clearly seen because of the things that he made, because of what God created. But if you buy into the concept that God used evolution to create, then actually the concept of evolution is then the entire creation appears as if it created itself. So if you believe in theistic evolution, you're actually saying that on Judgment Day, every atheist out there, well, that of course all atheists are evolutionists, are actually going to have an excuse, because they're going to be able to say, well, there's no evidence for you, God. Everything just looks like it was created.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of those dangerous pitfalls into looking at that.
Yes. This is an interesting article in the sense, well, interesting is maybe the wrong word, but it's a typical article. Let's use that word, because it's an article showing amazing design in some created thing that is not even now being duplicated. As the article says, there's all kinds of photo sensors that don't come anywhere close to doing what the human eye can do. And I mean, there's aspects of machines that have been made that can duplicate some aspects of what the eye does, but there isn't one sensor that does what the eye can do. Amazing design. Yeah. And yet you take the most modern, advanced digital camera that you can think of. Yeah. And it has all kinds of amazing features, and decades and decades of design have gone into them, from the old film days and working through how to make them better and better. Then the transition to digital last decade, and advances in digital photography.
And no one's going to look at any one of those things and say, oh, that just happened by chance.
Exactly, yes.
There's no way.
People look at the eye and say, well, it happened by chance.
Right. As a matter of fact, Dawkins likes to critique the eye, and we've got several articles on our website, creation.com. If you just go put in eye or design or bad eye design or something like that, you'll see many articles where evolutionists have said, no, the eye's wired backwards and it's got all these problems, and if there was a God, he wouldn't have created the eye like that. And of course you see detailed rebuttals where, a particular Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, because he's worked in this area, he says, well, actually, if the eye wasn't wired that way, if you ever went out in bright sunlight, it'd just burn the photoreceptors out of your eye. You wouldn't be able to recharge, need the blood flow in there to. And as a matter of fact, things like octopuses have eyes that are designed properly, so to speak, from this the evolutionary point of view, where it's wired a different way. But you don't see people saying, "Wow, that guy's got eyes like an octopus." He's got eyes like an eagle, right? And the eagle has bad eyes as well. So it's just kind of interesting that they'll try to criticize it, right? This is almost a theological argument, really. Oh well, if I was God, I wouldn't have created the eye.
God wouldn't have done it that way,
right?
And yet, the more we learn about the design of the eye, or the more we learn, let's not use design, the more we learn about how the eye functions,
right,
the better the design seems to be.
Right.
And we've got to do a show on those other articles too.
Right.
And we'll link it on this on the web page here.
That's one of the things about Creation Magazine, and I think one of the reasons why it's been so popular with supporters and just Christians in general is because you can read a short little article like that, you can get some faith building information. And go, wow, because it's hard to study everything, but that's a one-page article. You can read it quite quickly. Pass it on to one of your skeptical friends. It gets some work done, and it's not like a thick book that you sit there and you got to plow through and stuff, because people are busy, families are busy.
Yes, and there's a twofold purpose. You mentioned evangelism, but there's also it's great to build the faith of a believer. You can say, hey, give God the glory for some of these things that we see in the world around us.